Okay, number 1, graph the equation y equals 4x minus 1. It is already in slope-intercept form because it's y equals, and there's our slope here, 4, and then the b is the y-intercept, negative 1. So it's in slope-intercept form. So we will identify our m and b. M is 4, the b is negative 1. So that means we're going to start at negative 1 on our graph, and we are going to go up 4 and over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. And then we're going to go up 4 more from that point and over 1. And then backwards, so down 4 and backwards 1. We will draw a line through these points. And that's the graph for y equals 4x minus 1. Okay, number 2, graph the equation y equals 3/5 x minus 3. The m is 3/5. The b is negative 3. So we start at negative 3 on the y-axis, and we're going to go up 3 over 5. So that's here. And if we were to trace that backwards, it would be down 3 and backwards 5. So we'll go down 3 more and backwards 5. And we'll put a point there. And we will draw our line through the points. And that's the graph that represents that equation. Okay, number 3, graph the equation. We identify m and b. Okay, m is negative 5/4, and the b is negative 2. So we will start at negative 2 on the y-axis, that's our b, and it tells us that we need to go down 5 and over 4. So down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 4. That puts a point right here at 4, negative 7. Then if I were to work this backwards, we would go up 5, backwards 4. So I need to go up 5 more and backwards 4. So we're going to put a point here at negative 4, 3. And then we will connect the dots. We have a negative slope here. We have a negative sloped line. Goes through negative 2. That's the graph of this equation. Okay, number 4, graph the equation y equals 1/4 x plus 1. Identify the m and the b. Okay, m is 1/4. b is 1. So we're going to start at positive 1 for the y-intercept. We're going to go up 1 over 4. And we would do it again, but we've run out of space, but the point's going to be somewhere around here. And we would go down 1, backwards 4. And we would do it again, but we run out of space on our graph. We will connect the dots. Okay. And that's the graph that would represent that equation. Number 5, graph the equation y equals x. Identify the m and the b. Okay. M is 1 because we have 1x, and b is 0 because it's plus nothing at the end. So that means our y-intercept is going to be at the origin, and we're going to go up 1 over 1 for the slope, up 1 over 1, and that pattern is going to continue till I run out of space on my graph. And then we would go down 1, backwards 1 until I run out of space going the other direction. We will connect the dots. And that graph represents y equals x. Graph the equation y equals 4x. We have to identify the m and the b. M is 4. It's the coefficient in front of x. And b, there's plus nothing at the end, so that's 0. So we will start at the origin for the y-intercept. And we're going to go up 4 and over 1. And up 4 more over 1, which which would be about there. And then if we went backwards, it's down 4, back 1. So we'll go down 4 and back 1 here. And then we'll connect the dots. Okay, graph the equation y equals 5. I only see one variable here, y, so that means it's only going to cross one of the axes. So it's going to cross the y-axis at the number 5. So I will put my dot here, and since it's only crossing the y-axis, it will be a horizontal line going through that point, and it has a 0 slope. Okay, and that's the line that represents that equation. Okay, number 8, graph the equation x equals -3. This is the other special case that we have. We have one variable, which is x, so that means it's only going to cross the x-axis at -3. So we will put our point on -3 for the x-axis, and it will be a vertical line that passes through that point since it only crosses the x-axis, and that has an undefined slope. Find slope. And graph the equation y equals 2/5 x. Identify m and b. Okay, m is 2/5. B is 0 because there's nothing added to the end. So we will put our point at the origin, and we will go up 2 and over 5. And we will go down 2 and backwards 5. And we will draw our line through the points. And that one's done. Okay, graph the equation y equals -1/3 x plus 6. We identify the m and the b. The m is -1/3. The b is 6. So that means we start our graph when y equals 6. Or the y-intercept equals 6. And from that point, we will go down 1 and over 3. And then from that point, we'll go down another 1 over 3. And we would run out of space if we tried it one more time. So we will now go backwards. So we're going to go up 1 and backwards 3. And we would run out of space again. So we will connect the dots. That's the line that represents that equation. Okay, for number 11, it's a two-part. It says solve the equation given for y. So that means we need to put it into y equals mx plus b. So y equals mx plus b. And then after we get it into slope-intercept form, we need to take that equation and graph it onto the graph. So we'll start with the first part. We need to get it into y equals mx plus b. So I will split my sides here. And I need to get y all by itself. So in order to do that, I have to get rid of the -3x and the 2 in front of the y. So if I want to go to the opposite side of the equal sign, I need to do the opposite operation. So if I have a plus a -3x here, I need to do the opposite, so I'm going to add 3x to both sides. Okay, they cancel here. I'm left with 2y equals 3x minus 6. Then from there, I need to get rid of the 2 by doing the opposite. So it's 2 times y. So we will do the opposite operation. We will divide by 2. So here, 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I get 1y equals 3/2 x. That's a simplified fraction. And then -6 divided by 2 gives me -3. So now I'm going to take this equation that's in slope-intercept form, and I'm going to graph it on the graph. Okay. So we identify m and b. The m is 3/2. The b is -3. So I'm going to start at -3. And from there, I'm going to have a positive slope, so I'm going to go up 3 and over 2, up 3 more, over 2. I'm going to continue that pattern until I run out of space. And then I'll go down 3 if I can. I have to move the graph up a little. So down 3 and backwards 2. And then I will connect the dots. Okay. So the first thing that we had to do was we had to get the equation that was in standard form into slope-intercept form by doing opposite operations. And then once I have it into slope-intercept form, identify the slope and the intercept, write them down, and then plot the points. Okay, number 12, we're going to do the same thing. It says solve the equation given for y, so we need to put it into slope-intercept form. It needs to look like y equals mx plus b. Okay, and then we'll find our m and our b so that we can graph. Okay, so we will split the sides, and I want to move all of the pieces to the opposite side of the equal sign. So I need to do opposite operations. So I will subtract or add a negative 2x to both sides. And I'm left with negative 2y equals negative 2x plus 4. And then our last step would be to divide everything by negative 2. Okay, so that gives me y equals negative 2 divided by negative 2 is positive 1, so 1x. So our m is 1. And 4 divided by negative 2 is minus 2, so our b is negative 2. Start at negative 2, and then I'm going to go up 1 over 1, and I will continue this pattern until I run out of space. And then I will go backwards and do the same. Okay, and then we will connect the dots. And that line represents that equation in standard form. And number 13, solve the equation given for y. We're going to take it from standard form, and we're going to change it into slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. We will separate our sides, and we will do the opposite of negative 5x to move it to the other side, so plus 5x. And it leaves me with 2y equals 5x plus 4. And we will divide everything by 2. And that gives me 1y equals 5 halves x plus 2. Identify the m and the b. M is 5 halves. B is 2. So we're going to start at 2. And we're going to go up 5 over 2. And then down 5 and backwards 2. And I will run out of space if I go down 5 more, so we will draw our line. Okay, 14, solve the equation given for y. So we need to change this standard form into y equals mx plus b. Then we need to identify m and b so we can graph. Okay, let's fix that. Split the sides, and then do the opposite to move the pieces away from the y. So add negative 4x to both sides. So we have negative 8y equals negative 4x plus 24. Divide everything by negative 8. And it gives me positive y equals, and then we're going to take negative 4 divided by negative 8, and that gives us 1/2 x, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 24 divided by negative 8 is negative 3. So m is 1/2, b is -3. Start at -3 for the y-intercept. We go up 1/2. Down 1, back 2. Okay, and then the last point, or the last 2 points. Okay, then we will take our line, go through the points, and that's it. Okay, number 15, same thing. Solve the equation given for y, so we need y equals mx plus b. And we need to identify the m and the b. So we will add the opposite, so plus 2x to both sides. Leaves 3y equals 2x minus 9. Divide everything by 3. So I'm left with y equals 2/3 x minus 3. The b is -3, and the m is 2/3. So we're going to start at -3. And then from there, we're going to go up 2 and over 3. That's what the slope tells me. Up 2 more, over 3. And then we would go down 2, backwards 3. Connect the dots. And done. 16, determine the slope of the line identified by the equation 3x plus 4y equals 24. Okay, so in this one they're only asking what the slope is. Okay, so I can put this into y equals mx plus b. Split the sides, move the x's, and that gives me 4y equals -3x plus 24. And then we're going to divide by 4. And we end up with y equals -3/4 x plus 6. And it asks for the slope, so we're only looking for number in front of the x, or the coefficient, and that's -3/4. So m equals -3/4. 17, determine the slope of the line identified by the equation 7x minus 5y equals 35. So to find slope, we need to put it into slope-intercept form. Add -7x to both sides. And then divide everything by -5. So we get positive y equals a positive 7/5 x minus 7. M is our coefficient of x, so 7/5. All I wanted was to know what the slope was. 18, determine the slope. So we're still looking for just slope from that equation. So we're going to add -12x to both sides. And we're left with 4y equals -12x plus 36. Divide everything by 4. Y equals -3x plus 9. Slope is our coefficient, so m is equal to -3. Number 19, determine the slope of the line identified by that equation. This is already in y equals mx plus b, so our slope is the coefficient of x, or the number multiplied by x. So m is equal to 4/5. Number 20, determine the slope of the line identified by the equation y equals x plus 8. In this one, we know that we have 1x, so the coefficient, or the number in front of x, is 1. So our slope is that number 1. 21, determine the slope and y-intercept of the line identified by the equation. So we are looking for m and b. The m is the 3, the b is negative 5. M is slope. B is the y-intercept. Okay. Number 22, determine the slope and y-intercept of the line identified by the equation. We're looking for the slope and the y-intercept. Slope is 3/8, and the y-intercept is positive 7. 23. Caitlin graphed the equation y equals negative 2x plus 4. The graph below is her line that represents that equation. Is her graph correct? If not, explain the mistake Caitlin made. Okay, so first thing we want to do is we're looking at an equation compared to a graph. So I want to identify the m and the b. And the m, the slope is negative 2, or negative 2 over 1, right? We can make a whole number fraction by putting it over 1. And our intercept is 4. So that means we need to start at positive 4 for the y-intercept, and we need to go down 2 and over 1. So we'll check that. Down 2 over 1. That's a good point. Down 2 more over 1. Down 2 over 1. And the pattern obviously continues. Okay. So is her graph correct? Yes. 24. James graphed the equation y equals negative 1/3 x plus 1. The graph below is his line that represents that equation. Is his graph correct? If not, explain the mistake James made. Okay, we're comparing this equation to this graph. So in order to go from here to here, we need to look at the slope and the intercept. So identify the m and the b. B is 1, slope is negative 1/3. Get that from here. So we need to start our graph at 1 and for the y-intercept, and it does. And then we need to have a negative slope of negative 1/3. So that means down 1 over 3 from that point. And our line would end up going this way, and we can see that he had a positive slope. So is this graph correct? No, because he used the wrong slope. It should have been a negative, and he made it a positive. All right, Crystal graphed the equation y equals 2/5 x minus 2. The graph below is his line that represents that equation. Is her graph correct? If not, explain the mistake Crystal made. Well, obviously, instead of his, it should say her up here. So that was mistake number 1. All right, so Crystal graphed this equation. So m is 2/5, b is negative 2. So we're going to start at negative 2 on the graph and then go up 2 over 5. And we can see that our line would go this way. So she actually made 2 mistakes in this graph. First, her y-intercept was different. Instead of being negative 2, she made it a positive 2. And the second mistake was that it should have been a positive slope because we had a positive 2/5, and she did it as a negative slope.